It is a pleasure to be here. I was at this HCL conference last year, heard Bill Clinton, danced into the night, and had a great time. And I'd really like to thank our hosts, HCL, for having me and allowing me to share some of my thoughts with all of you. So thank you very much. Talking about the Agile Enterprise is something that I think has been an evolution over the last 30, 35 years. And I'm dating myself, but I've been in this industry for 35 years. I have a unique position of having been a seller of technology at IBM. I was a CIO for 11 years at the Campbell Soup Company. I was a CEO at both Safeguard Scientifics and CompuCom, so I managed IT, and now advise CIOs for the last 8 or 9 years as the CEO of the W Group. So my perspective is sort of multifaceted, and I can tell you that the learnings from each of those perspectives is pretty unique. But the one thing that I can tell you for sure is that IT is changing more rapidly and more radically today than perhaps it ever has. The basis on which IT competes today is entirely different. I can remember days when IT competed on the basis of having a bunch of mainframes and running homegrown systems to replace accounting and back office jobs. And then we moved into sort of cross-functional systems and client-server and the era of database onto the internet and ERP. And today, we're competing on the basis of analytics. And the opportunity to compete on the basis of analytics is a question that is driving a bunch of behaviors in IT that I think John has certainly responded to, and I think each one of you will consider more as time goes on. One is the need for governance, being able to understand what work should be done. Secondly, who should do that work, and thirdly, where it should be done, and manage IT work as a portfolio, as an investment portfolio. And secondly, the governance process will allow IT to better control an environment that is quickly getting almost out of control. We have a couple of forces, external forces to IT, that have really impacted what we do. The first was the economic conditions that we've all been going through for the last number of years. It's forced us all to be a lot more prudent about IT investments to make sure that we get a return. Secondly, it's driving people to consider variable costing as something that they should be running toward rather than having assets on their balance sheet or making huge investments that they can't get out of in a relatively short amount of time. Web 2.0 is connecting everyone. And not only is it causing issues with the consumerization of IT, bring your own device to work kind of issues and security issues, but also we're entering this whole era, and everyone's heard about it enough, of big data. And big data is really, really something that can offer us competitive advantage, or it can be something that allows us to really miss opportunities if we don't manage it correctly, have the right governance in place, and frankly have the right enterprise architecture disciplines. We've actually have clients who have started to feel some of the pain of Web 2.0, big data, and the proliferation of devices and systems and security, because they're relatively uncontrolled. Most of the providers are going around the CIO. I doubt that happens at Covance. I can tell you it didn't happen when I was a CIO, but we're starting to see it more and more because cloud solutions, software as a service, infrastructure as a service, are allowing people to go around the normal IT service delivery processes. The best practices we're beginning to see are folks who are implementing ITSM, ITIL version 3, and really starting to stress discipline within the system so that they can control how these IT expenditures are made, can control the standards, control the architecture. And that's having a big impact on how IT is organized. I hate to use the word centralization. I'd much rather use the term rationalization of IT and focus of IT rather than centralization. But IT shops are getting smaller. Any of you who are managing budgets know that your budget's not getting any bigger. So a focus on cost, a focus on efficiency, and a focus on doing things the right way is what we're beginning to see in the marketplace. So what's the big idea here? And the real inspiration for this, and I think maybe an analogy that is pretty timely, and I'll draw on something that Bill Clinton said last night. So that there's no real lack of talent in third world countries. And if I make the analogy to IT shops, there's no lack of talent in IT shops. But one of the reasons why third world countries really can't or have a difficulty competing is that they don't have systems. And when they do put some of those systems in place, they ossify. And they never really change, they never really evolve. And so they become outdated and they become corrupt. The same thing is true in IT. Unless you institute the same sort of governance structures that John and many others are instituting, unless you institute process and disciplines, the IT shop will ossify as well. Your costs will go up, and you'll end up having the kind of issues of data proliferation, security issues, and your costs will go way out of control. The other thing that is beginning to happen, and I skipped over it, is that IT is quickly becoming commoditized. Infrastructure in particular is becoming commoditized. And I have to wonder why many people are still running their own infrastructures. There are very few infrastructures out there that if you really kind of dig into it, say they are adding to shareholder value. Me managing my infrastructure is making my share price go up. Consumers are driving different behavior, and they're driving different kind of skill sets that are required in IT. So when I talk about the kind of role that IT plays, I think the role of the CIO, but almost everybody within IT is changing. We are going from technologists and systems builders more to integrators and educators. One of the largest trends that we're seeing in IT, not just IT, in business and in business models, is that the responsibility for IT is pretty quickly moving into the business. And when I say it's moving into the business, I mean that in the truest sense of the word. The responsibility for improved business processes, for innovation, for systems thinking, is moving into the business. Part of it's a generational issue, but part of it is that technology is enabling some of that behavior. And so what IT can do is enable that movement. 25 years ago, I was used to doing both the how and the what. I can tell you that there are very few companies where that would go over today, yet we still see it. So the real responsibility is in the business, and we can help as IT professionals help to facilitate that, make it go smoother, make it be more effective, and certainly help it to create value within the company. We're seeing a lot of IT shops that without discipline are starting to find themselves in a position where it's more and more difficult to respond to the things that the company needs it to do. We're growing through acquisitions. Everyone has a lot of cash. M&A activity is at all-time highs. And we begin to layer on to an already shaky sort of infrastructure of systems and proliferation of infrastructure that's driving our costs up and not making us more effective. So we get back to the question of why should we use someone like HCL? Why should we use other folks to help us? Because they can do it cheaper, they can do it better, they can do it faster. Our job as IT professionals is to provide the governance infrastructure and the decision-making within the company to ensure that value is created. So CIO's roles have changed. The role has changed to one of an architect, to one of understanding how technology can be leveraged to make money. How do I help increase shareholder value? How do I do the right things within the corporation, rather than being a manager of programmers or infrastructure people? How do I manage vendors? How do I manage a whole portfolio of providers and provide the governance structure that's going to help us succeed? So transforming IT and making IT into the kind of function that's going to add value, I think it requires different thinking, going from current models into these future models. And I think that the CIOs, I think that IT professionals can lead the way, but it's not going to be without adding some discipline. ITSM, ITIL version 3, strict governance disciplines, sourcing disciplines and not needing to own and control everything, and an acknowledgement that IT is actually moving into the business. So, thank you.